And now when we hear from Mahmoud, one of the very first things he experiences is the pain and the suffering of other prisoners.
You know, the population of Sabra Shatila rose to about 120,000 or maybe even more. It was all surrounded. Nobody can escape. The shelling came closer and closer. And then people who are just shot point blank, sometimes brought in dead, were brought into our hospital, some of them so badly wounded that I can't save their lives.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. These are Palestinian children. Idris Ahmed writes on April 15th, all these children were burnt alive when the Israeli Air Force bombed their tent with weapons supplied by Joe Biden and Donald Trump, voted for repeatedly by Cory Booker. Bear in mind that these children had already lived through 17 months of Israeli terror and starvation. My friend's cousin is the little boy in the blue shirt. His name was Ahmad Abu al-Raus, and he was 11 years old. He was confined to a wheelchair as he had special needs and couldn't escape or scream as he was burnt alive. This baby was named Malik Mohammed al-Tarawi, born a year ago, killed by an Israeli drone while his father was trying to get him vaccinated. I want to make a point about that word, wounded. Wounded doesn't sound so bad. These are 4 Palestinian child amputees coming to the U.S. for treatments after losing a limb to U.S. weapons. Imagine the thousands of wounded in Gaza with the barest of treatment. We'll show the start of a 2-minute raw video of a massacre of first responders in Rafah. A phone was recovered with the video on it. It included the sound of a man reciting his last devotion to God. That man was killed. All in all, 15 people were murdered. A bulldozer dug a pit, and the bodies, some with their arms secured by fasteners, and the emergency vehicles all in the pit and buried.
هي مرمين بسرعة هذا الشيء أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد.
One person was taken away by the Israelis. A Palestinian eyewitness saw this happen. The Israeli paper Haaretz demands the Israeli army tell what happened to him. The IDF promises an investigation. Even the paper sees their answer as farcical. This man was one of those who exhumed the bodies. He's speaking on Al-Quds video. His testimony is terribly graphic. I'll play just a bit, but you might want to skip it.
كان عبارة عن نصفين، يعني جسده طلعناه وكان رجله كانت في الجبل ضايل. بعد ما فحرين الجورة باقيين اللي يعدموه أو اللي كان مستشهد باقيين حاطينه في الجورة، كانوا فوق بعض زي جبل حاطينهم فوق بعض ودفنينهم. يعني في منهم بلا فيش روس وفي منهم مش مبين ملامح يعني. فكان إشي مرعب جدا والله. كان إشي مرعب جدا جدا، كان إشي مرعب جدا جدا. أنا كإسعاف أو دفاع مدني أو إنقاذ لما أجي عندك شو بشكل عليك خطر؟ توقعنا السيارات موجودات، الشباب معتقلين، 1 2 مستشهدين، توقعناش اللي شفناه. مرقنا وصلنا عند السيارات لقيناهم عبارة عن كومة حديد، السيارات مدمرة بشكل كامل، يعني فيش إشي فيهم يصلح لأي حاجة. توجهنا على المكان، فكان كل إشي بتعليمات، يعني لما بدنا نخش على المكان كان بتعليمات، ننزلش من السيارات إلا بتعليمات، تقولنا مثلا انزلوا، شيلوا، انسحبوا، كل إشي بتعليمات. كان معهم مخشرات، تمام. المنسق نزل قبلنا، فلما نزل قبلنا كانت فوقينا كواد كابتر، وبجانبنا يمكن ب 500 متر 700 متر كان يوجد دبابتين، وفي جنود حوالين الدبابات، كان قراب علينا جدا. وبدينا نشتغل. الحين قبل ما ننزل كانت الكواد كابتر يعني نزلت لمسافة قريبة، علمت للمنسق عبر المخشير، قالت له يعني في المنطقة كذا وكذا وكذا. بالفعل لما نزلنا في المكان اللي حددوا لنا إياه لقينا الجثث، كان أول شيء فوقهم شادر.
This is a drawing from the fine Italian artist Gianluca Costantini in solidarity with the first responders. Now to a press conference about an award to jailed Columbia graduate student Mahmoud Khalil. Good afternoon, I'm Stanley Heller. I'm Administrator of Promoting Enduring Peace, and I'm very happy to start this press conference to talk about the Dorothy Day Award, which we are presenting for the first time here in Connecticut. And we're going to award it this year to Mahmoud Khalil. And what I'll do is explain to the media here that we'll have 3 speakers: Martha Hennessy of the New York Catholic Worker, Mark Colville of Amistad Catholic Worker, and Shelley Altman of Jewish Voice for Peace New Haven. So they'll be speaking soon. Now, Promoting Enduring Peace has been around for near 70 years. We're best known for our Gandhi Peace Award. Some of the recipients of note: Eleanor Roosevelt was the first, Cesar Chavez, Ralph Nader, and also Dorothy Day. That award is kind of for a lifetime achievement in peace or environment. And for years we've been talking about having another award for people who might be a political prisoner, or in grave danger, or a young person who has done something very important. And in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, that's 1,000. All 3 categories are taken there, are filled. So he is a Palestinian. He was born of refugee parents in Syria. In 2012, I believe, when the Arab Spring, as they sometimes call it, came to Syria, he was a participant. I think he went to some of the rallies. At any rate, his family decided to flee, and so they left Syria with tens and hundreds of thousands of others. And he came to the U.S. to go to Columbia University, and that's quite an achievement. Thank you very much. Quite an achievement for several reasons. One is that it's very hard to get into Columbia University. It's an elite institution, but probably it was a lot harder to pass the checks to get into the U.S. for refugees. 8 different security institutions have to approve, and so he did get this approval. October 7th comes, what they call the Hamas attack, a military attack, and also accompanied by atrocities. And then October 8th, the incredible and monstrous Israeli government response that has continued to this date. Something that, very briefly, the International Court of Justice has said it is quite probably a genocide, and that they have ordered Israel to take various measures to make sure that the various aspects of genocide do not happen. Israel, far from obeying this, continued their awful assault on Palestinians, and neither the elderly, women, or children have been spared. So, as the months went by, there was protest, and there were protests at Columbia University and followed by other universities. It spread all over, and Mahmoud Khalil took part in this. He did it openly. He didn't wear a mask, as some did. He was a graduate student. He then was widely respected as a speaker, and then he helped mediate things with the university. There was various things that the students did. They pitched tents on a grassy lawn. At one point, they occupied a building. They called it Hind Hall in honor of a little girl who was murdered in January of 2024 while she was in touch with the Palestinian Red Crescent, who tried to save her. Instead, the Red Crescent ambulance officials were killed, and she herself lost her life. And then they named that hall for her. At any rate, this is very significant, amazing things that he did. I explained why PEP decided to call it the Dorothy Day Award. She was a journalist, a reformer in the Catholic Church, set up the Catholic worker movement, and was herself arrested many times in her actions. So we at Promoting in Peace admire her, and in fact in 1975 gave her the Gandhi Peace Award. So I am proud now to introduce the granddaughter of Dorothy Day, Martha Hennessy, who's going to talk about Dorothy Day and the work that the Catholic worker movement does in New York and other places, and perhaps some reflections about Mahmoud Khalil.
Dorothy is in the process of canonization of sainthood with the Catholic Church, and the Dorothy Day Guild has just recently put together a Dorothy Day Award. So I guess we're going to be hearing more and more of this kind of thing with Dorothy. So yes, she started the Catholic Worker in 1933. It started with a newspaper being handed out in Union Square, and it was a paper for the people of the street, for the unemployed workers, the displaced farmers. The Great Depression gave birth to this movement, this Catholic worker movement. And Dorothy kept her voice alive for at least 40 years, protesting war, protesting capitalism. She was instructed by a French peasant by the name of Peter Morin, whose ideals were to bring forth Catholic social teachings and take care of the most vulnerable among us, and to help create a new world within the shell of the old.
Martha Hennessy talked about the persecution of Mahmoud Khalil.
And this is a demonstration of public dishonesty, of arresting him, taking him, snatching him from his wife who was expecting a child. And now when we hear from Mahmoud, one of the very first things he experiences is the pain and the suffering of other prisoners. And he gives voice to that immediately. This is the kind of person he is. He is what I would call a servant of God. He is suffering personally for what he has done in his work as a negotiator, and blessed are the peacemakers. And he has a wife who is expecting a child, and this is such a travesty, such a horrible human travesty.
Now to more of the talk by Dr. Swee Ang at the Palestine Museum. She relates what she saw in the Israeli-observed Sabra Shatila massacre in 1982.
Okay, I'm just a doctor growing up in the UK, but now Gaza meant so much. And I know why is it called Gaza Hospital? Because the Palestinian refugees from Gaza became refugees in Lebanon. And within the refugee camps, to remember the places they come from, they built hospitals. They call it Gaza Hospital, Haifa Hospital, Ramallah Maternity Home, and so on and so forth, so that their children growing up as refugees, by just looking at the hospital, attending the hospital, know where they are from. The Palestine Red Crescent Society ran 13 clinics and 9 hospitals, and they treated everyone free, Lebanese and Palestinians alike. All 9 hospitals were bombed, 8 of them flattened. Gaza Hospital was spared. The military actions stopped after 2 floors. I will tell you later on what happened if you ask me. Remember to ask me, okay? This is the top floor of Gaza Hospital, bombed from the air, shelled from the mountains. And then I looked out of the 10th floor of Gaza Hospital and saw this kind of structures, you know, the remains of buildings that were bombed. And with the ceasefire, I saw people coming back, old men, old women, bringing back wounded children to rebuild their homes, to clean the rubble, put up curtains, and start life all over again. And very soon I found out that these were the Palestinian refugees. Yeah, and I worked with them, the doctors and the nurses. And of course, more important than that, I learned about their culture. You see, if we just say that Palestinians are terrorists, they're bad people, they treat their women badly and so on and so forth, they're Arabs and all, then we dehumanize them. But if you're with them, you will learn of their generosity, their compassion, their steadfastness, and despite their own suffering, and despite knowing that I'm so Zionist, always defending Israel, they treated me as one of their family. And they taught me Palestinian history. Sometimes when they sit down and tell me about their villages and their homes and what happened during the Nakba, but sometimes just by showing me their beautiful embroidery and each special design from the village in Palestine where they come from, villages that were destroyed, they no longer exist. I think it's about 513 villages completely flattened. And they make beautiful dresses. And the civilization, they translate their poetry, explain to me. I've learned so much, and I kept asking myself, why did I not learn about these people? Now I understand. Because you ask yourself too, how can all of us watch the killing in Gaza, the genocide, and yet at the back of the minds of many of us, we still think there must be a reason for it. And the reason is dehumanization. If we call the Palestinians a people that's subhuman, and that they're not like us, we prepare ourselves to allow them to be destroyed. But if you see them face to face, and you know that they're human beings like ourselves, and for those of us who believe in God, that they are our brothers and sisters, then you will never allow them. So I think the first thing about supporting Palestinians is to see them as one of us. And once you make that transition, you will do everything you can to be with them, to support them, and everything you can to prevent them from being treated so badly. And when you see an olive tree being uplifted, or being uprooted or bulldozed, you will know that the farmer has spent 14 years nurturing that tree. And to him or her, that tree is part of their family. So everything becomes precious. And that's why, after 42 years, I'm still here with you. But it didn't happen like that. 3 weeks into the ceasefire, Israel announced to the whole world that the PLO cheated and left behind 2,000 terrorists. And therefore they are invading Lebanon by land, by tanks. They shelled all the way into Beirut city, destroying the suburbs, and a contingent of tanks moved towards Sabra Shatila, the refugee camp I worked in, and sealed the refugee camp so that nobody can escape. Remember, at this time, the people has just come back to rebuild their homes and lives because USA has guaranteed peace. So they came back and rebuilt their lives, hoping the schools will reopen, even though they're refugees, but there's a chance to life. And life is a precious thing, even no matter how difficult. You try to safeguard it so that at least your children have a chance. They were not given a chance. The population of Sabra Shatila rose to about 120,000 or maybe even more. It was all surrounded. Nobody can escape. The shelling came closer and closer. And then people who are just shot point blank, sometimes brought in dead, were brought into a hospital, some of them so badly wounded that I can't save their lives. And like the old man here, he taught me how to cook Arabic coffee. Arabic coffee is not put hot water in coffee. It's not. You put it on a little fire and you cook it. That's Arabic coffee. He's dead. Children. More people. And at one stage, after operating for about at least maybe 48 hours, I went up from the basement operating theater to look up 2 very special patients. It's a mother and a baby. They were told to go into their homes because it's safe, and when they actually went in, they shelled the homes. So everybody died except the mother and the baby. So they were alive, we operated on them, and I came up to make sure that both of them are, and to leave instructions with the nurses. And I found the mother and the baby both in shock. They need blood transfusion. By that time, the hospital has only 1 unit of blood left. So I told the nurse, give it to the mother. But the mother refused to have the blood. She wanted to give it to the child. And what she told me in Arabic was just translated and said, "Doctor, I'm going to die. But God will look after my baby." And of course, she died very soon. But I also took this picture. It's very important for you to see. Both persons in the picture are nurses, okay? The man that was sniped and nearly died was a Bangladesh volunteer nurse, a very senior kind of theater nurse. They shot him.
I want to talk about a Holocaust denier. No, not Orban, Benjamin Netanyahu. Let me read a tweet from an Israeli named Noga Tarnopolsky from April 13th. Today, standing next to a Hungarian authoritarian leader, Netanyahu simply erased the Holocaust of Hungarian Jews. Gone. Never happened. It is a stunning rewriting of the history of the genocide of Central European Jews. See it unfold here. Here's part of what Netanyahu said.
your struggles. You had exited the ravages of World War II, only to be under a new type of occupation. And it took you many decades to liberate yourself and establish Hungary as an independent country. So that offered some similarity to our travails, which were on a different scale. A third of our people were murdered in World War II, in the Holocaust. We had to overcome great odds to reestablish our sovereignty in our ancient homeland. And it was a question of time when these two histories would meet and begin the great alliance that is now developed.
Consider what Netanyahu said. Hungary exited World War II. A third of the Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. Years later, these two histories meet. Erased is the Holocaust in Hungary. Over 400,000 Jews murdered in 1944, most during the rule of a Hungarian dictator named Horthy. Just as Tarnopolsky writes, the Holocaust in Hungary, gone, never happened. In his lust for support, Netanyahu denies it all. Benjamin Netanyahu, Holocaust denier. Finishing with some Jewish Passover protest. This photo, a cut at the fascist ruling Israel. That's our program for today. See you next week. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.